Good morning, all. My name is Manish Rathi, co-founder and director for NovelVista. I welcome all of you to Agile L&D webinar by Dr. Madana Kumar. We'll be starting the session in next 2 minutes. So before we actually start, a quick introduction about NovelVista and the kind of initiatives which we have taken. So NovelVista is one of the India's leading corporate training organizations. And as a part of our journey, we strongly believe in organizing a knowledge sharing events. So if you see on the slides, there are a couple of large scale summits which we have organized where we invited the industry leading speakers and a knowledge sharing session was organized. Yeah. So that includes starting from cloud till blockchain. And in last quarter, we did even the L&D summit as well, specifically focusing on the L&D professionals. So L&D Summit India was successfully conducted in Pune as well as in Bangalore, where we saw almost 70 plus L&D leaders joining in, sharing their thoughts, thought leadership, best practices around the learning and development, and it was a sort of networking opportunities for the L&D professionals as well. So next one, we have one of the upcoming summit as L&D Summit India in Delhi chapter. You can see the high level speaker, and by end of this webinar, I'll share you more insight about the upcoming summit which we are planning in Delhi on the 7th of March. Now, coming back to the agenda for the day, I would like to welcome Dr. Madana Kumar, who is one of the VP and the global head of L&D at the UST Global. He is a passionate leader with around 35 years of experience. I would say, and a strong expertise in speaking at the various forums like HR summits, CLO summits. He had strategically transformed the L&D function at UST Global as well. And that brought a huge impact on the business. Along with this, he also do take care of one of theological educational field. He is currently the director caters for the leadership at the South Asia Institute of Advanced Christian Studies, a premium theological institute for postgraduate education research, which impacting a community at the various levels. I would like to welcome Dr. Madana Kumar to take us through the session and take it forward.
All right. Thanks again, and welcome back. Sorry for those, starting troubles. Technology is good, and it does have some of these challenges. So let's get to it. Let's get to understanding how do we build an agile organization. So before we get into the how of it, let us try to understand why. Why do we need to build an agile organization? And that is what we will try and do in the couple of minutes right now. So I think this is something that all of us will agree with, that everything around us is changing. I don't think any of us will have any difference of opinion about it. There may be very few things that is not changing, but majority of the things around us are changing. The way we live, the way we order food, the way we travel, the way we read, the way we listen to music, our entire life, and the way we learn, the way we manage things, the way we communicate, everything is changing around us. And as you would see probably in the screen, you would also see that the speed of change has significantly exponentially started increasing. So it's no more the slow pace of change that that characterized the change from an analog to a digital world. But today, with social and digital catching up, we are literally, the changes are at truly a tremendous pace, and basically it will not be incorrect to say that we are living through one of the biggest shifts in the mankind, the shifts that we could potentially refer to as the digital shift straight away. So these are the realities, but nevertheless, what we need to realize is that even though changes are fast and changes are happening all around us, we probably are still living in a digital kindergarten, in the sense that the changes that will happen tomorrow are going to be a lot faster and a lot more than what is happening today. So if we believe that we are struggling with today's changes, the bad news is that it's not going to be any easier. It's only going to get tougher. So we are still in a digital kindergarten, and further changes are yet to come. And this is corroborated by many studies. Thomas Friedman, whom many of you might know, who wrote the book, The World is Flat, about the Bangalore, of sourcing of software jobs to Bangalore, it came a decade ago. And he has written a latest book called "Thank You for Being Late." And in this, he basically presents a fact that technology changes have actually overtaken the human adaptability. Or in other words, there was a time in the history of mankind where human beings adapted to changes, technology changes a lot faster. But today, the technology changes have already overtaken this thing, in the sense that basically what he's saying is that we are actually somewhere over that threshold where the technology changes are have really overtaken our adaptability, and we are, in other words, playing catch up. Right. And if you look at the rate of change that various institutions have, you will see that technology is changing fast, and the individuals are trying to catch up, and the businesses are trying to catch up with individuals, and the as can be expected, the legal framework or the public policies or the government rules and regulations, etc., are even slower to catch up. Right. So that's how literally, and the gap is widening. The frightening piece is that that the gap is widening. Now, let me pause here to give you a chance to think, and let me ask you this question. So I'm going to open up a poll for you, and the poll will basically, I want you to think about, okay, look at these four curves, right? So we know that technology is racing ahead, individuals are catching up to technology, businesses are catching up to individuals, and the public policy is literally lagging behind all of them, right? So let's look at this and let us see what do you think. So let us let's take a minute and respond. Let us see what is the response from you. So give it a thought and pick one of these. Oh, great. Okay, so basically, what you're thinking is that you are somewhere between technology and individuals, and so there's a tie between those two, individuals and between individuals and businesses. Okay, so this is pretty good news. This is pretty good news. I would actually have thought that that we are probably even lagging behind businesses, but it is good to know that majority of us think that we are ahead of the rate of change in businesses, and somewhere between businesses and individuals. So excellent. I mean, this is good to know. And so this means that obviously L&D organizations are taking the changes that are happening seriously, and we are in accepting the fact that changes are required and moving ahead. Okay, good. So we accept that changes are there. It is happening at a fast pace, and I'm again happy to see that many of you think that L&D is not doing so badly. We are certainly catching up, but we are certainly doing better than many of the business organizations. So it's pretty good to see that. Another change that is happening is basically, if you look at the life stages, of ours, and if you look at the old system of life stages, it used to be a pretty simple model of where we grow up, we get educated, we work, and then we retire. So it used to be called the three-stage model. But there's a recent book written, which I have put on the left-hand side here, The 100-Year Life. And this book, based on a research, basically shows that this three-stage model of life is no more valid, and the life has become a lot more complicated. And as you can see, basically, people start studying, and then they start exploring things, and then probably they start becoming entrepreneurs, and then they will try to do something of their own. They will employ, they will seek some self-employment, or they will do gig economy or gig work, part-time work, or whatever it is, and all that stuff. And then finally, maybe at some point in time, we will retire. So the whole life cycle, life stages itself have changed. And what this is given is, or what this signifies, and what this affirms, is the fact that today's employees who work in organizations have got a lot more choice. They don't need to be stuck with an organization, they don't need to be stuck with a job, and they have a lot more organization with the internet opening up and the digital culture catching up and stuff like that. So basically, what all of this mean is simply this: that the we have the traditional L&D model, that is that we can see here, is no more valid. And what we have is what we need to have is basically what we are seeing as the need of the hour is an agile learning, agile learning. Okay, yeah. Anyway, so primarily what I was trying to say is that all these changes that are happening around us should be convincing us that the traditional L&D is dead, and the need of the hour is for us to go and be agile L&D. So I guess with this, you might be we have established the fact that that we need to move into an L&D, into an agile L&D. So that is required to cater to the latest requirements and the latest global trends and things like that. Now, let me just take you through basically a case study of what we have done at UST and how do we make it into an agile learning. What you see on the screen is what I call as a 4-to-4 strategy, which is basically nothing but centered around the expected outcomes, and the outcomes are enabled through the three-prong approach of experience, engagement, and enablement. Right. So what we did in UST is to create a learning strategy that primarily makes sure that the expected outcomes, which I'm sure all of you know for an L&D organization, is the business growth and the engaged workforce and client success and things like that. So the expected outcomes from any L&D intervention remains the same, but because of all the changes that I highlighted in the previous few minutes, but what basically what basically we decided is that the learners need to have a great experience, because they can't be traveling using an Uber, and they can't be ordering food using a Zomato, but come to an office and sit in front of a system, of a slow system, and read a PDF document or things like that for learning. So the learning experience need to be world class, and it needs to be matching with the digital experience that they have in day-to-day life outside. And that's why we decided that as part of converting our learning into an agile organization, we need to provide the learners with the choice of device agnostic learning, just-in-time learning, self-driven learning, and not just one mode of delivery, but multi-mode delivery and curated content. And we then looked at what is our role, what is the role of the learning itself, right? And so obviously the previous concept of being trainers will not work anymore, and we realized that what we need to be in learning is to be centers of excellence, provide thought leadership, and of course, very importantly, provide a digital learning platform that employees will feel excited about. And we also realized that when we do this, we don't have to necessarily depend on our in-house abilities alone, because there are people outside, partners like NovelVista, for example, who are investing heavily in sort of focused areas that we need, and so we can build and depend on a partner ecosystem to help us to execute this strategy. And then finally, coming to engagement, what we have found is that we need to basically, whatever we do, we need to engage the millennials, but at the same time not disengaging the older people, right? So we need to make sure that that there is a balance. And obviously, engagement also comes when the people have an insight into what are the client needs, the material of where they are working in the organization. We need to innovate on the learning methodology, on the learning content, on the learning delivery and stuff like that. And also that it needs to be linked with the roles and the competencies that are required by the roles. And that is driven through analytics, which is again powered by artificial intelligence and machine learning and stuff like that. So this is the sort of learning strategy that we implemented at UST, and that is really what has given us significant amount of business impact in the terms of business growth, in terms of profitability, in the terms of client success, in the terms of building a digital culture, in the terms of enhancing the engagement of the employees and stuff like that. So based on this, what we arrived at is about 6 focus areas. We obviously, the first focus area is user experience, which I already have explained. And we also know that ultimately we can't provide a user experience but provide lousy content. So the content has to be cutting edge too. And then comes the requirement for skills, and then we build the partner ecosystems, and then of course ultimately the roles, and then finally we build the digital or the agile culture. So these are the primarily 6 focus areas that we needed our organization to be looking at, and that is what we build. Of course, all of them need to be built on a world-class, on the foundation of a world-class infrastructure, which is nothing but the technology infrastructure, not necessarily the physical infrastructure and things like that. And we also realized that learning needs to be made accessible, and in the accessibility, we have found that we need to provide digital access to a vast repertoire of learning resources, and again not limited by organizational LMS. So we actually went ahead and designed and implemented our own internal learning platform, digital learning platforms, where people have interactive learning. People have their own personalized learning recommendations and things like that, and social learning and stuff like that. So we went ahead and did all that to make sure that that we have that ability to look at creating digital access to the vast repertoire of learning resources, not limited by organizational LMS. What we also did is to help the organization to be future ready by looking at what are the learning sources that we can provide, by focusing on self-directed learning instead of push learning, by catering to the learning preferences of various people, and by adopting what we call as the rapid learning methodology. There is a new book called 20-hour learning, where we say that yes, the conventional wisdom told us that we need to spend about 10,000 hours to acquire a skill, but that is too much today. But for us to learn quickly something, what the recent researchers show is that probably about 20 hours is sufficient, right? And then of course the social learning and obviously seamless learning, where we can learn from any device, and when we switch from device to device, it is absolutely seamless and things like that. So those are some of the things that we looked at to make our learning future ready. So at this point in time, I would like to, so this is basically some of the things that we did in UST Global, and the results have been very, very promising for us. But let me try to go to more a more important aspect of building a digital culture. And for that, let me ask Manish to again open up the poll, and let us ask this question for you. Let us ask the second poll that we have, right? Okay. So try to answer this question. According to you, what is the most important characteristic of an agile L&D organization? What do you think is the most important characteristic? I have listed three in that. You have to choose one of them. What do you think is the most important characteristic of an agile L&D organization? I'm amazed at the results that are coming in. it's it's fantastic, and I'm sure you would be probably also amazed to see what the results are. So yeah, we can close the poll now, and yeah, let's show the results, please. Yeah. So the results, as you can see here, is lovely. What it says is 97% of you believe that the most important characteristic of an agile organization lies not in technology, not in building the roles, but in being quick, flexible, adaptable, responsive, and proactive to the internal client needs and to the and I'm really really amazed at this level of this thing. It is I'm sure none of you really think that technology skills are not important. I'm sure none of you really think that the roles will change and we got to prepare people for the roles. But I'm very happy to note that what you think is the most important one is to build a culture of quick, flexible, adaptable, responsive, and proactive this thing. So Manish, if you can switch back to my screen, please. Thank you. Right. So, so basically what we are looking at is we know that skills are important, and and then we also know that roles are also necessary for us to do this. But obviously, what your poll shows, as well as what my research has shown, and that is substantiated by the poll that you have given now, is that the culture is the biggest piece of it all. Because if you look at the poll questions, if you look at what you answered, being proactive, being agile, being flexible, being adaptable, being responsive, these are all cultural issues, right? These are not necessarily just skills, right? So, and that is why as we look at the building an agile organization, what we need to focus more is on a culture, on building a culture within the organization. Of course, now the question is, what type of culture do we need to build, and does L&D have a role in building that culture, right? So that is the real question that we have to look at. So but basically, I'm going to give you a framework that I refer to as the as the value framework. I'm sorry that that the pictures are not showing in this somehow, but you will see it. Value. So the value is the framework that we are referring to, VALUE, and where V stands for vision, A stands for appreciation, L stands for love, U stands for uplifting, and the last E stands for empowering, right? So this is really the value framework as we talk about the value framework of of building a culture. So if you ask me, how do we build a culture? It is by this. It is by providing value to our clients, our managers, our this thing, and things like that. Okay. So let's look at some of them in brief, right? So the first one stands for V. V stands for visioning. And visioning is something, and it was really interesting when I went ahead and looked at learning organizations and studied, and it was also provided by a Deloitte study that only about 50% of the organization, or less than 50% of the organizations, really think that L&D, or learning and development itself, needs to have a vision by itself. So they're saying, why do we need to have a vision? The organization has got a vision, and our job is to execute that vision and stuff like that. But what research shows is that where learning organizations themselves have a vision, the chances that the organization will succeed is a lot higher. So that's the first one. The second is appreciation, and again, we're not able to see the picture that I had in the slide here, but what it says is basically a quote from Ken Blanchard, who says that, look, you got to go and then catch people doing things right. And we human beings are always good at finding out what is wrong and what people are doing wrong and stuff like that. But we really need to change that around and build a culture of appreciation, and then really trying to catch people doing things right. And so basically, the next one is what we do at UST. Again, the picture is missing here, but what we really do is we have a digital tool where the appreciation is instant. Appreciation is empowered to everyone. There are hardly any approval levels, and then and it is mobile enabled and things like that. And and then you really get to appreciate people as and when they do things, and this thing. So the next one is, of course, love. And again, I know that you are seeing a blank screen because the pictures are not showing. But what I wanted to show here is very simple. When I talk about love, it is not about not about the Bollywood type of love, or the Mills and Boons type of love, but it is about truly loving people as they are. Because I believe in the saying, that is what I had put in the slide initially, and unfortunately you're not able to see it, is this, that you either love power or you love people, right? Leaders either love power or they love people. So you have a choice. You anyway love some things, right? And as a leader, what happens is you can end up loving the power that you have, the position that you have, or you can end up loving the people who work for you, right? And the question here is, of course, how do we do that? And we have in UST a way of measuring that, and we measure it by what we call as those seven behaviors of servant leadership, as we call it. And we measure it through a report called the MSLA, which is written there, which stands for Menorah Servant Leadership Assessment. And these are emotional healing, creating value for the community, demonstrating conceptual skills, empowerment, helping others to grow and succeed, putting others first, and behaving ethically. So these are some of the things that we measure our leaders by. How much do they how do they actually conceptualize? Do they create a vision? Do they empower others? Do they help others to grow and succeed? Do they put others interest in ahead of their own interest? Do they behave ethically? Do they have a high sense of integrity? Do they practice emotional healing? Do they create value for community even outside the organization, and stuff like that? So this is really how we measure the competencies of our leaders, to find out if they are in line with our value of loving and things like that, right? And then the next alphabet is again U. Again, you are not able to see the picture here, but what it really means is uplifting, right? So primarily the question is that of who have you uplifted today, or can we do something that will uplift the others? So let me give you a small story to demonstrate why we do need uplifting. Okay, assume that you're going to a party, or going to a fair or a festival with a small child, child who is just maybe about 2 to 3 years old, a small child, and the child is walking by the side of you, and the place is crowded. but it is buzzing with activity. There are firecrackers going on. There are lightings everywhere. There are things that you enjoy seeing. There is singing and dancing happening and all that stuff, and you are able to enjoy all of them. And you then suddenly feel that your child is crying and she is tugging at your clothes, and you wonder, why is she not enjoying this? I'm enjoying all of this and it's such a nice sight. Why is she not enjoying it? And then you decide, after a little bit of a time, you decide to finally bend down to her level and try to talk to her. But then something happens. When you bend down to her level, suddenly, you are at her eye level, and you then suddenly see what she is actually seeing. At her eye level, all that she's seeing is the shoes and pants and dirty feet and and things like that, skirts and things like that. She's not able to see any of those sights that you are seeing, because she is there. She is down there, where at her eye level, all that she can see is the legs and skirts and clothes and pants and dirty shoes of people. And then you realize that, oh goodness, I was not seeing things at her level. And then you decide to lift her up. You lift her up, you put her on your shoulders, and then you see that child's face lighting up, because now she's able to see things at your eye level. And she's able to see the lighting, she's able to see the fireworks, she's able to see the smiling faces. And then her mood changes and she becomes overjoyed with that. What you did just now is, when you stooped down, you saw things at her eye level. You empathized with her, and then you decided to lift her up. You lifted her up. You put her on her shoulder, and that's what you did. When you that what you did there is actually uplifting her. Now, this is an example of what you can do and what can happen when you uplift others, right? So, as learning professionals, we need to ask the question: who are we uplifting today? And we need to make the leaders think about uplifting others in the organization. And so that is really the piece about uplifting this thing, right? And the next one, of course, the next alphabet in the value chain is E, which is VALUE. E is about empowerment, and empowerment is again very important in the organization, because the conventional leadership thinking is the traditional hierarchy, or the traditional pyramid, where the boss sits at the top and the others are at the bottom. Again, I'm sorry that you are not able to see the pictures, but if visualize an traditional organization structure, which will always be where there is a boss at the top, and all the other people are one level, several levels below, and the people who actually handle the customers are at the bottom, right? And that is the traditional way of looking at this thing, or what we call it the conventional leadership thinking. But the new leadership thinking is that the leaders need to set goals and vision, and after that move on, and what we call as the invert the pyramid, and empower the people to do the implementation. Again, you are not able to see the pictures, but what it shows, just visualize an inverted pyramid, right? An inverted pyramid where the leader is at the bottom and the employees who actually carry out client-facing roles are at the top. And that is really the new way of leadership thinking that we need to sort of make sure that that happens. And when that happens, the whole organizational situation changes. So that is really the value that that I'm talking about, the VALUE, right? And the value framework. And this value framework is what I call as the overall implementation of servant leadership culture within the organization. And if you really work on implementing servant leadership within the organization, starting with L&D first, you would be able to change the culture, and that culture will bring in a significant amount of agility within the L&D as well as within the organization. So let me stop here and open up for questions and answers. I know that yes, you are not able to see many of the visuals that I had prepared in the slides for whatever reason, but I hope I have been able to convey the message in spite of that technical glitch that we have. So over to you for question and answers, please.
Sure, Dr. Madana. Hello all. We have a chat option. You can see out there. Just put down your questions with your name in a chat box, and I'll try to read it out, and Dr. Madana would answering those questions. Yeah, we're just waiting for the questions. Yeah. I hope all of you are able to see the chat window. Please feel free to put down your questions for Dr. Madana Kumar, and he will try to answer the same. We're just waiting for questions. Just give me a minute. So there's an interesting question about the generation Y, which we call as a millennial generation. So what are the best practices to ensure that there is a good adaptability for the learning initiatives taken by the L&D team for the millennial and the generation Y sort of audience, Dr. Madana?
Well, there are of course several studies there, but primarily what I believe and what we have been practicing is that that they need to be valued first. We need to give them a feeling and a perception that their opinions are valued, and they are rewarded and recognized for what value they bring, rather than for their lack of gray hairs or lack of number of years of experience and stuff like that. What we have also found is that the millennial employees are really do demand and get a significant amount of empowerment and freedom, and they truly want to want to be heard and want to be left to do what is right. And surprisingly, what we also find is that they are a lot more keen to learn, and of course, learning on the go, as we call it, the learning, learning in the flow of work. So whatever is the whatever is required for them to perform a particular task at a particular point in time is what they need, and then they are really looking for learning that comes as and when they need it. So that's from a learning point of view, that is one of the characteristics that we have seen. But they are willing to invest in learning. They're willing to invest in learning, and if the learning organization of the L&D organization or L&D function of an organization does not provide that learning, they will go outside and find that learning for themselves, because there are plenty of avenues available there too. Because what happens then is, of course, the L&D becomes irrelevant to such a generation. So to be able to stay relevant to that generation, L&D needs to change the way they present the material, what they give it to them, and stuff like that.
Sure. So if you see typically the audience to whom the L&D professional caters, these are like Generation Z, which are typically born between 1995 to 2015. Then there's a millennial, which is born between 1980 to 1994. Then Gen X, what we call born between 65 to 79. And then there's a baby boomer, what we call a born between 1944 to 1964. So just wanted to know from you, what are those best practices through which we can engage and deliver those valuable learning initiatives to each of those generations. Specifically, I would say about the baby boomers as well, like who are born between 1944 to 1964, who are on the verge of maybe possibly retirement, or holding some senior position in the organization. And when with the change in the digitalization, the new roles and the kind of I would say technology platform being moving upon, and the automation, what are those best practices that you would recommend to upskill a baby boomer who are born between 1944 to 64?
Right. I would say that primarily what you need to do is to first and foremost take away the fear from this generation. I think what many organizations and many people have been trying to do is to create a sense of fear in them, saying that that they are going to lose their jobs, or they are going to lose their livelihood, that artificial intelligence will take over their roles, and they will not have a job anymore, and stuff like that. So in a way, using punitive methods to to bring in change in them. I think what we need to do is to first and foremost fight that, punitive way of attracting people, and and forcing them to change, and forcing them to acquire the new skills and things like that. Change, resistance to change is a common thing. It happens in all generations, and when we are faced with change, one of the first things that everyone will ask is, okay, what do I lose, right? But good leadership is when we are able to change that question around and lead them to ask, what can I gain from this change? So instead of focusing on the negative aspects of the change, negative aspects of digitization, the negative aspects of AI and machine learning and stuff like that, if we are able to articulate and communicate what this generation stands to gain by adopting or by learning new skills, and by learning new methodologies and new gadgets and stuff like that, I have seen people changing significantly. And jumping onto the bandwagon of digitization, and sometimes even outclassing the generation, the millennials, as far as technology adoption is concerned. So I would say that use positive reinforcement, use appreciative inquiry, and use positive methods rather than negative methods and punitive methods to help them to change, and give them a reason to change, give them a positive reason to change, and I'm sure they will change and learn. Can you elaborate seamless learning, and how is it different from other modes? Okay, this is question from Anshul. So Anshul, basically what we mean by seamless learning is that when you are able to learn on the go wherever you are, right? So it will be obviously be device agnostic, that you start learning, let us say, at home, maybe using a TV screen, and then you get onto a bus. You can continue that learning, maybe using a podcast, or using a using a video, and in your handheld, and then you get your organization, you continue the same one. So so basically wherever you are, it is you need not necessarily worry where you started and where you're going. So it will be available to you anywhere. So that's really the meaning of obviously it is different from other modes, because sometimes the other modes, you got to be at a specific place and at a specific time to learn things. Seamless learning basically means that you can learn from anywhere, anytime. So that is typically the this thing, right? Ananta Agastya, if you are there, I think your question is culture of adaptability, flexibility, etc. Can this be built without changing the way people take on roles? I would say that building the culture of adaptability and flexibility is a prerequisite to people changing the roles effectively, right? Otherwise, of course, people will be forced to change roles because the organization requires different roles and things like that. But what makes it better is is if it is built on the culture of adaptability and flexibility and things like that.
Yep. I think there's an interesting question from Venkataraman as well. How practical is it to have the inverted pyramid structure? Has it been successfully implemented anywhere?
Yeah. Yeah, there are significant. It's not easy. First and foremost, it's certainly not easy. But you have various organizations who have done it. I can give you a couple of examples that I have studied well. Of course, these are U.S. examples. Southwest Airlines, for example, and maybe the organization called Chick-fil-A. And if you Venkat, if you are interested in that, you can go and look for a book called Servant Leadership in Action by Ken Blanchard. Servant Leadership in Action by Ken Blanchard and Renee Broadwell. And that gives you almost about 40 plus cases of such these things. I mean, having said that, it's certainly not easy. And we are actually in the process of doing it in UST. We can't say that we have succeeded yet. So what we are doing is we are changing the goal setting mechanism. We are changing the whole what we used to earlier call as the appraisal mechanism. We are changing the feedback mechanism and things like that. So we are actually in the process of inverting the pyramid itself in the UST. And yeah, it has to go through a lot of changes. So thank you for asking that question, Venkat.
Yeah, there's another question from Suchitra Datta. Since we are planning or conducting the training for employees, so how much important it is for us to learning or know that particular topic? Say example, as a part of L&D, they could be organizing the trainings on the technology side, maybe on a communication side, behavioral side, cultural aspects. So overall, how important is it to know the specific topic? And that's what she's asking, knowing the depth of the training program.
Yeah, so Chitra, I think my answer to that is twofold. One is, I mean, in the current world, each of us is expected to be what I call as a T-shaped expert, right? So we got to have a general awareness and general knowledge about multiple topics. So that becomes the horizontal part of the T. But each of us also need to have one vertical in-depth knowledge about some of the aspects. So each of us need to be a T-shaped professional where we have awareness about multiple topics and in-depth knowledge about at least one or two of them, right? So we have to be first and foremost a T-shaped professional. But at the same time, we also realize that that the amount of knowledge out there is vast, and so we will not be able to develop expertise in all of them. And that is where I will go back to the partner ecosystem, that I talked about. So rather than trying to build everything internally, we can and we should develop and make use of a good partner ecosystem which is out there and which is available to us.
Sure. I think that there's one more interesting question by Sarika Kumari. What kind of tools are available to promote the appreciation?
Yes, I told you basically already. We use a tool which is a digital tool called UStar, which is available in desktop and in handheld and things like that. So right now there are digital tools available on this. So you could actually, and there are partners who again provide those type of tools, right? So yeah, so that's what really we use. We use a digital tool for appreciation. Primarily, it is a tool where everybody has got access, and
I'm sorry, sir, we lost your voice. Hello. Madana, sir, we are not able to hear you. Hello.
everybody can give certain level of appreciation, and the available out there which we can use.
Okay. There's another interesting question from Rachel. What is the most effective way to adopt the pull strategy?
Yeah. So I believe that a pull happens when we are able to establish what I refer to as a what's in it for me for the individuals concerned, right? For example, you are all part of this this webinar, and some of you might have been just forced to come here because somebody else did that, right? But what, as a learning professional, we need to do is to see and constantly ask this question of what is in it for me as a participant. So if we are able to answer that question first, that will create that initial interest and initial pull. And then, of course, we have to obviously make it interesting. We have to make it, high user experience. We have to make it, engaging and all that stuff. So those comes later. But pulling a participant or pulling a learner into a learning platform or a learning offering starts with this simple question of, of what is in it for me. And then, of course, as I said, we can't ignore the experience that we need to provide, the engagement that we need to provide, etc.
Okay. Possibly last question from Advait. As an agile L&D organization, what are the best practices that you have incorporated in your organization, or some couple of some good recommendations, best practices, or I would say, what I would say, quick wins which can be implemented as a part of agile L&D to take this ahead?
Yeah. I can share quickly some of the things. First is, we have reorganized the L&D into three pillars or three verticals: the skills vertical, the roles vertical, and the culture vertical, right? And we are focusing on all the three of them. So while the skills vertical is working on building skills that are required for people to perform, the roles vertical is, is working on creating learning paths and specific learning these things that are required for making preparing people for roles. But all of them starts with the culture vertical, which is what I spoke about. One of the culture verticals that we are talking about is the servant leadership culture itself. So we have started implementing servant leadership across the organization in a big significant way. And so we build that culture, and and of course at the same time working in in collaboration with the performance management team, the rewards and recognition team, the core HR team, etc. We are also trying to change the other things, so we become the catalyst for change for those things. And so that is one thing that we have done, building a culture and building a culture of culture of servant leadership. But building a culture by itself is not sufficient. We also have to, provide, tools and tools and things for the people, accessibility. So that's what I said. We have worked on providing learning accessibility to all through a digital hub. We have partnered with partners who can provide great amount of user experience for our employees so that they don't feel bored looking at this thing. So we have sort of upgraded ourselves so that we have seen internally as a digital organization who is in tune with the changes. That's why I said our career paths have been changed. Our performance management system is now on an app and is no more the annual appraisal system. Our rewards and recognition mechanism is in an app. So there are a lot of other things that are changing around it too. So similarly, of course, the learning also changes as per that the 4x4 strategy that I try to highlight.
Okay. So thank you, sir. I think now considering the time, let's conclude for the webinar. Yeah. Thank you all for joining the webinar. We look forward to see you all again. As we discussed, there would be a regular webinars on a technology side for the L&D professionals, for the business, for the delivery team. Please do share internally with your other team members as well. And if you have any specific feedback, do let us know. Thank you, Dr. Madana, for your valuable time. Yeah, thank you again. Thank you very much. Thank you all. I think we can drop from the session now.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it's time to conclude. Thank you, Dr. Madana, for sharing your valuable insight about Agile L&D and the servant leadership initiatives. We all really had a good learning today. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you all for attending this webinar. As a next step, as a part of Learning Carnival, we will continue in doing the regular webinars for L&D professional as well as for the business. When I say business, you can see there are some upcoming webinars planned on blockchain, cloud, DevOps, IoT, robotic process automation, which are like the emerging technologies. So what we are doing, these would be the free webinars purely meant for the knowledge sharing. We would be keep on sharing those initiatives as a part of webinar to you. You can share them across with your business, with your leaders, with your delivery team, and we'll keep on sharing the knowledge as a part of Novel Vista Learning Carnival. Additionally, we are also having our third edition of L&D Summit India coming up in Delhi on 7th of March. That is Saturday. So we already have a couple of good speakers already confirmed their nomination. It would be good opportunity to meet in person those L&D leaders, interact, have an amazing panel discussion, speaker sessions, and the best part would be the networking. We had seen a very good networking in the past sessions of the L&D Summit in Pune and Bangalore. We are looking forward for all of you to participate. Whoever is based out of Delhi or willing to travel to Delhi, they are feel free to do the registrations. You can see the link there. Additionally, I'll be sharing the same information on the email with all of you. So let's continue this journey of learning as a part of Learning Carnival. In case you wish to organize any specific webinar of your own choice or based on your delivery feedback, just drop me an email. Possibly we'll try to take some good speakers, or it could be global speakers or speakers from the India, and make it available for your team within a quarter. So thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Madana, for your valuable insight. We really appreciate your time, and we look forward for some more webinars in the coming quarters from you.